I'm Catherine Wood, Leadership Coach at Life Renewal. Welcome to 7 Steps to a Future Fit Organisation, Why Brain Science Drives Business Optimization. The reason for this presentation is to give you an overview of how you can incorporate brain science into your organisation to enable your organisation to be future fit during these times of change and uncertainty, and help your employees to thrive. Understanding how you may be triggering stress or frustration, anger, resentment during change and uncertainty will give you an understanding of how you can incorporate some coaching techniques into your workplace. So I'm going to be going through some steps that you can implement into your organization to help your employees thrive, to help them to be better thinkers, to adapt to change, to be agile. So without further ado, let's look over the contents of today's presentation. So we've got, are you a future fit organization? Why brain sense makes good business sense? What is your organization triggering? Different functional domains of the brain, 7 brain dynamics, and 7 steps to building a future fit organization. Are you a future fit organization? Think for a minute. Is the organization ready for what's to happen in the future? After COVID, there's been huge changes and uncertainty across the globe. So thinking about the organization, are your people agile? Are they able to adapt? Are they resilient? Is your organization future focused? And do you have a culture of engagement, motivation, performance and well-being? And some of the key factors involved in building that type of culture are these listed. So communication. How are you communicating to your employees? How are you communicating change initiatives? Are you having regular engagement conversations? Are you consistent in how you're moving the organization forward with clarity in direction across the departments? Are you delegating? Are you problem solving at all levels? Do you have a clear strategic plan and maintain it? Do you have performance process in place? A feedback process in place where everybody's involved? What about behaviors? How can you align these? And expectations and accountability. So across all these key factors, a key factor in all of this is about employee interactions, which is really important. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that in the next few slides. Why brain sense makes good business sense. So for those who don't know about social cognitive neuroscience, this is about focusing on human interactions. This is about having those interactions in your organization and being intentional about those interactions. So you can facilitate meaningful and positive change by incorporating brain science into your organization, and it's through those human interactions. So over the next few slides, I'm going to show you how to do that. So here we're going to talk about neuroscientific framework, and it has 6 elements which I'll talk you through. The first one is intellectual capabilities, and this is about maximizing potential of your employees to think strategically, plan, organize, problem solve. So bringing in the brain science into your organization will enable you to really drive your organization forwards and be prepared for change and uncertainty in the future. Teamwork, this is about establishing psychological safety in helping your employees to feel safe to speak up and feeling comfortable in the work environment. VUCA, this is about promoting agility and adaptability. And it's minimizing the threat of change. So minimizing the fear, the stress, the frustration that people may fear when they are going through change and uncertainty, and maximizing their buy-in into your change initiatives, into the things that are happening in your organization in the future. Meeting effectiveness. So this is about increasing team productivity and employee satisfaction through effective, efficient, and engaging meetings. So maybe exploring how you can ensure that all meetings are effective, efficient, and engaging. Effective problem solving. This is about outthinking your competition. So really using the brain science for the whole of the organization to come together and problem solve in a really strategic way. And again, this brain science can really help with that. And then leader as coach. So helping your teams to arrive at their own solutions by helping your leaders to become coaches, to apply coaching into the organization to again drive your business forward and be future fit. What is your organization triggering? And by that I mean any of these things listed could be making your employees feel stressed, frustrated, angry, having resentment. And so it's really down to thinking how these triggers could be impacting your organization through your people. So we'll just go through this list. Could be unclear direction, where your employees feel a bit lost at what they're supposed to be doing. Miscommunication, they feel that they're not being communicated to regarding change initiatives, announcements. Unfairness, so there could be employees feeling that they're not being treated fairly. Lack of listening to employees. Pressurizing employees, maybe extra workloads. Stressful working environments where employees aren't finding the ability to focus on what they're supposed to be doing. Creating overwhelm, so there's too much going on in the organization, and long working hours, and perhaps lack of support from the organization for that employee. So these are things to consider, and these are really things that can be triggering your employees to not be performing at their best, not be able to think at their best. So that's what we're going to be exploring in this next part. When the brain feels it senses a threat of some kind, like in any of those organizational triggers I've just shown you, then this can cause responses in employees such as stress, isolation, confusion, frustration, anger, resentment, anxiety, depression, and fear. So understanding the brain science behind this can really help you to avoid triggering these responses in your organization. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about the brain so that will give you a really good understanding of how you can apply then the brain science to your organization. So here we're going to talk about cortisol. Now, cortisol is the primary stress neurochemical in the brain. And what activates this cortisol in employees are these things listed. So real threats and perceived threats. So by threats, I mean things that the brain isn't expecting, things that could be change, uncertainty. Social pain, including rejection or exclusion. And then chronic psychological worries and hurts. And these are mainly in the domain of the past and the future. And then self-referential thoughts, particularly on specific future events closely related to personal goals and concerns. So it's really important that you understand as an organization how to prevent triggering cortisol, because this is hugely going to impact employees' performance. So here we're going to look at the impact of high levels of cortisol. So cortisol prepares the brain and body to deal with a threat. So as we said, the threat is any of those organizational triggers, for example. The cortisol affects mood, motivation, fear, and alert level in employees. So this will really impact their performance. Cortisol does boost energy, but this is only in the short term. And at high levels of cortisol or during prolonged stress, this negatively impacts optimal cognitive functioning. So this really is important to consider in an organization. Optimizing the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC, is the front part of the brain responsible for all the executive functioning. So things like strategic thinking, decision making, problem solving, planning, organizing. So this is the part of the brain that we really need to get activated in employees to increase performance in the organization. So always come back to what are you triggering as an organization or as a leader, as an individual, and consider your organizational behaviors, because these behaviors can trigger the stress response, they can trigger anger, frustration, fear in employees, which will obviously impact their performance. Be intentional in those behaviors, which reduce threat. That's the first thing. So trying to reduce those organizational triggers where there's going to be less threats for your employees to have responses where they're stressed or frustrated or angry, for example. And the second thing is to increase the reward. So think about reward and recognition schemes, for example, in your organization to really help your employees drive the organization forward together. And consider creating a positive work environment if you haven't already. And this will really help to ensure your employees are feeling safe to speak up, safe to feel that they can share ideas, be part of the problem solving and also the decision making in your organization. So it comes to a fine balance of healthy level of stress to stay motivated. So not all stress is bad. Just having a low level of stress is enough to keep employees motivated, so they don't reach that point where they're bored in their work and they're staying motivated to get the job done. Fulfillment at work. So this is really helping your employees find that purpose, having a shared purpose across the organization, across the teams, where they feel that they're adding value to the organization and what they're doing. And maintain attention levels. So keep your employees excited and motivated and wanting to come to work and share ideas and problem solve together. And promote the brain-friendly neurochemicals. So we haven't covered that yet, so I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So really promoting those neurochemicals that are brain-friendly, that really drive optimal performance in your employees is really key to building a future-fit organization. We're going to look at the different functional domains of the brain. This is a quick summary of what we're going to cover over the next few slides. So two key areas is the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex that I've already mentioned. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about those two areas. And then we're also going to look at brain-friendly neurochemicals. So that's dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And you'll see how these chemicals can be triggered in employees and the impact of those chemicals in employees. Looking at the limbic system is important to understand how employees can respond to threats when the limbic system kicks in and is activated for the fight-flight response, for example. So when this fight-flight response kicks in, it means that the executive functioning part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is shut down, which prevents the employee in thinking clearly and all of those other executive functions. So the primary function of the limbic system is being the emotional seat of the brain. So it's really responsible for the emotions. It facilitates memory storage and retrieval. It establishes emotional states. It's responsible for attention, shaping our motivation and emotional behaviors. and it also links the unconscious intellectual functions of the cerebral cortex with the unconscious automatic functions of the brainstem, such as breathing, heart rate, etc. So that's why it's important to understand the limbic system. So we're going to look at the limbic system in a little bit more detail in terms of the impact when the brain senses a threat. What happens is the limbic system is responsible for the behavioral and emotional responses. So this kicks in, and the limbic system also controls the appropriate responses to stimuli. So that could be environmental, for example, of what's happening in the workplace. And then, as I mentioned on the previous slide, the sympathetic nervous response when sensing a threat is the fight, flight, or freeze response. So this limbic system automatically kicks in through the amygdala in the brain, and this is automatic because the brain has sensed a threat, and this is what happens. So the emotions take over and it closes down that prefrontal cortex. So the responses regarding the limbic system could be things like breathing rate increases, the heart rate increases, you maybe feel tense. So lots of different body sensations happen when that system kicks in. A little bit more about the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. The primary functions would be planning, organizing, attention, focus, memory, complex cognitive and behavioral processes, managing distractions, creativity, collaboration, emotional regulation, personality development. So all these things will enhance the performance of your employees. So activating this PFC is really vital in the process of designing a future fit organization. And the responses of the PFC is that you have conscious decisions. So you're really able to think clearly and plan and all those great things that you want to have in your organization. And it has the ability to shut down executive functioning when the limbic system kicks in. So it's really about that switching into the PFC and switching off the limbic system. And that's why brain science is so important for your organization, to get the best out of your employees through their PFC. And the impact of stress is about the neural pathways shutting down. So stress will mean that the PFC shuts down and therefore impairs the executive functioning. And also chronic stress has a shrinking effect on the PFC. So all things to bear in mind in your organization. So here we're going to look at the first of the three brain-friendly neurochemicals, the first one being dopamine. So the activators in employees for dopamine would be creating novelty, curiosity, positive social interactions in your organization, having perceptions of control, so asking your employees for their ideas and being able to implement what they think they could do to better their work in the organization. And then using meditation and mindfulness just to help promote dopamine in the brain. And the impact on the brain of dopamine is that it's highly rewarding. It facilitates learning. It facilitates positive mood and plays a role in positive reinforcement. The second brain-friendly neurochemical is serotonin, and the activators for serotonin are having a positive attitude, mood, exercise, nutritional food, and positive social interactions. And the impact of serotonin on the brain is that it helps sleep, your mood, your happiness, your ability to cope with anxiety and stress, and self-regulation. The third brain-friendly neurochemical is oxytocin. And the things that activate oxytocin are storytelling to evoke empathy, caring about others, trusting people, autonomy, recognition, and perspective taking. So these are things that you can consider for your organization, how you can promote oxytocin. And then the impact on the brain of oxytocin is social cognition, learning, trust, cooperation, empathy, psychological safety, and it reduces stress. So here we have 7 brain dynamics to lead your organization to greatness. So we'll just have a quick overview of those 7 dynamics. The first one, psychological safety. So we've talked about that already. Creating a secure, safe working environment for employees to thrive. Limbic activation. We've talked about what are you triggering. Negativity bias. So this is about providing some really positive feedback rather than focusing on the negative. It's about optimizing the prefrontal cortex functioning. So enabling employees to switch into that PFC functioning. It's about positive social interactions. Like we said right at the beginning, human interactions are really important to enable your organization to thrive, to be future fit. It's about avoiding mental shortcuts. So don't just look for the same patterns of doing things the same way, because change nothing and nothing changes. So it's really about looking for new ways of working smarter, and coming up with ideas together as an organization. And neuroplasticity. So this is about believing that change is possible. So neuroplasticity is the process of the brain adapting and changing. And scientists used to think that the brain just stayed the same as we got older, but actually the brain, through neuroplasticity, that process can adapt and change at any age. So we can use that to our advantage. You can use that to your advantage in the workplace to help people to adapt and change and learn, and believe that change is possible. So the outcome would be that understanding the brain basics can help, firstly, leaders to improve their ability to think and collaborate at work. So improving their ability to think and collaborate at work. And secondly, for employees to change their ability to think and collaborate at work. So those are the 2 outcomes of incorporating brain science into your organization. Here we have 7 steps to building a future fit organization. This is with a brain science approach. So I'll go through each of the 7 steps and I'll give a little bit of detail behind each one. So consistency and clarity. So this is about helping your employees find familiarity in the organization. This is rewarding because the brain feels safe in this kind of environment where it's familiar with what's going on, and this causes oxytocin levels in the brain to increase, creating a calmer state in employees, which is what you want, because this will activate the prefrontal cortex part of the brain for clearer thinking, for example. Clarity and transparency are not only rewarding, but they are key ingredients for organizational performance. So the second step is delegation of tasks and decision making. And this is because a perceived sense of autonomy and control is a basic biological human need and is essential for well-being. So having delegation in your organization is key to helping employees have a sense of control. And having the ability to make choices is really key to help your employees thrive. The third step is curiosity through brainstorming solutions. So creating some kind of novelty in your organization will trigger curiosity, which is intrinsically motivating. And this activates the brain's reward center. And we're talking about increasing reward at the beginning of the presentation. So this is really key to helping you to do this. And Novelty releases dopamine, as we mentioned earlier when we were covering the neurochemicals. Then step 4 is about maintaining and communicating an organizational strategic plan. And this is because the brain has a need to know and understand. We can apply this with employees needing to know and understand the meaning and purpose of their work, which is really key, because this helps them to be more willing to tackle difficult issues rather than avoid them. So feeling that they can be driven in knowing the meaning of their work is vital for building a future fit organization. And then performance discussions. So this is about the discussions you have with employees about their performance. And this is to do with our brains constantly making social judgments and determinations about the intentions of others and whether they can be trusted. It's about fairness, because fairness has been shown to impact people's attitudes, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in a variety of situations. So it's really looking to help employees see that you're being fair in how they're being treated at work. And then the 6th step is about having a structured feedback process. And this helps to build confidence. And this will help employees learn and grow, because feeling a sense of pride and confidence have been correlated with positive workplace outcomes and the ability to effectively recover and learn from failures. So the structured feedback process should help employees to learn and grow. That's really key to part of this process. And then finally, create team agreements, including behavior commitments. And why is this? Because the overall part that you need to include is trust, because without trust you don't have a foundation for an organization to thrive. Creating team agreements builds trust, particularly with having behavior commitments, because this is critical in human motivation. So having the trust in having aligned behaviors within a team will help your team to feel motivated. And trust is also linked to oxytocin, which is one of the brain-friendly neurochemicals we covered earlier. So there you have it, the 7 steps to building a future fit organization. Thank you for watching this presentation on building a future fit organization using brain science. I hope you've gained some valuable insights you can take back to your organization. I'd like to invite you to join together with me to build a future fit plan for your organization. I have coaching sessions I can offer you and workshops and resources to apply some of the techniques we've used in this presentation in your organization. Please contact me using the link provided to book an appointment, or you can send me an email using the email address provided. Thank you.